Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me again today for the Finding Hope After Loss podcast. We are already almost halfway through the month of October, and there have been so many amazing posts helping to raise awareness for pregnancy and infant loss. I saw a post recently that I can't remember who it was by, but it mentioned that Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Month is not for us that have gone through loss, but it's to help raise awareness for those that have not been through it. We don't have to only talk about our babies and remember them during the month of October. We remember them all year. We remember them every single day. So don't feel like you have to limit talking about them to just this month. But this month is important in helping those that have not gone through it to understand just a little bit what our experience is like, both during loss and in our life after loss. I also wanted to remind you that the 12th is the last day to get your names in for the Wave of Light. I have over 1,000 names I will be reading at this point. Make sure you subscribe to the Journey for Jasmine YouTube channel since this is where it will be posted. So today I am talking with Elizabeth. She shares about the loss of her son Teddy when her water broke prematurely. She also now has 2 living children after her loss. Hello, everyone. Today I am here with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi. My name is Elizabeth. I am 30 and I live just outside of Cleveland. I am a stay-at-home mom, a small business owner, and I also run a nonprofit called A Touch of Teddy. I have 1 angel baby and 2 rainbows, and I've been married for 6 years.
You sound like you are pretty busy.
Yeah, yeah, I like to stay busy.
What do you do for your business?
My best friend and I actually run a tumbler business, so we make custom tumblers.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah,
So can you tell a little bit about your lost story?
absolutely. So in 2017, my husband and I got married, and we knew right away we wanted to try starting having kids. So by the end of summer, we were seeing my doctor, and we got started on Clomid, and we had a couple failed cycles with that. So I went to see a reproductive endocrinologist, who we were starting letrozole, but we found out I had thyroid cancer. So I had surgery to have that removed. And then we fell pregnant with Teddy on our first post-surgery cycle. It was normal. It was a normal pregnancy. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary, routine checkups. I had my 20-week anatomy scan and he looked perfect. But when I was at work, I was 21 and a half weeks pregnant. My stomach was hurting. I just felt like I needed to use the restroom. And while I was in the bathroom, my water broke. And I panicked. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know at the time my water had broken. I just knew that it was gushing, and I couldn't stop it. Every time I tried to stand, it started all over again. So eventually, my best friend worked with me at the time. She was able to drive me to my doctor's office where they confirmed my water had indeed broke. I then went to a hospital that had a good NICU, but we made it a couple days. They said I didn't have a good prognosis because it had broken so early. And on the morning of October 6th, my cord prolapsed, and they said I was in active labor. And he made it till, sorry, I
Oh, it's
feel like
okay.
it never gets easier telling it.
It really doesn't.
I made it until 2 p.m. that afternoon is when they said that his heart stopped. Um, so I was surrounded by my family and my best friend and my husband, and so they gave me medicine to help induce the labor, or to help further it along. And at 11:58 p.m., he's delivered sleeping. He was 11 inches and 15 ounces, and he was perfect. And I don't have answers. I don't have any reason why my water broke so early. They said that there was an infection in the placenta, but they're not sure if it had happened before my water broke or after, considering it had broken for a couple days before he passed. So we will never have that kind of closure and answers, but um, I know he's watching over us. I mean, I thankfully have had, my two babies after him, and I try to put him in everything that I do.
I'm so sorry. I know it's so hard to share our experiences, even though like we like talking about them, but it's hard too.
Sorry for blubbering all over the
Oh
place.
no, no, that's okay. So when you had your pregnancy afterwards, did they monitor you closer, or did they just think it was a one-time thing that happened, or how did they
Oh
handle
no.
that?
They monitored me like they were watching me like a hawk. I actually, with both of my pregnancies, because they said if it's not broke, don't fix it. When it came to Nathan's pregnancy and Delilah's, they said they wanted to treat that pregnancy the same exact way to make sure nothing was wrong. I had cervical length checks from 16 to 22 weeks, even though my cervical length wasn't an issue with Teddy, but they said just to be safe. I had progesterone shots from week 16 to 36 with both of them, extra NSTs, and just a lot of extra monitoring, which, for me was the best comfort I could have received.
Do you feel like you received good medical care overall, like even during the loss and afterwards as well?
Yes, I feel like I was glad I went to the hospital I did because I feel like they were really compassionate in regards to my loss. So I ended up switching all of my care over to that hospital system. And the doctors I saw, like everyone was on top of it that, okay, she's experienced a pregnancy loss. Like, they made sure to read my chart before I went into the room. And everyone was always, straightforward with me and sympathetic, of course. But I can't talk enough about the care that I received during our loss too, because it was just, for such an overwhelming time to receive, I guess, such. Sorry, just losing my train of thought. Um, I just, I just had the best nursing staff I could have had ever.
And they really do make all the difference. I had some amazing nurses during my loss as well, and it's like it's a horrible thing you have to go through, but they really make it like as good as it can be in that moment.
There was actually a nurse that was with me, like when I was getting my epidural, and through a lot of the time that I was in the room with Teddy, like, and she wasn't there right when he was born, but she came back on shift later that night after he had passed and while we were spending time with him. And then, out of pure chance, she happened to be my nurse again when I was going into labor with Nathan, and she was on shift when I delivered him. So it was really special for both of us to come full circle.
Oh, I love that. That is very special. So after Teddy was born, were you able to spend any time with him? Like, were you able to get pictures or anything like that?
I was. The hospital staff was like like I said, unexpectedly very compassionate about it. They actually took pictures for us. I have like a picture of us holding him with my like family all hovering like behind us in the background, and then they took him to get pictures. And then they provided us the 4x6, printouts to take home with us, and they gave us a little like memory kit and everything. And we spent as long as we wanted. I want to say we had him for quite a few hours, maybe 5 hours after he passed. before they took him just so we could get some rest. Not that I did. um, and then they brought him back the next morning so we could spend more time with him before we went home.
Is there anything that you found in particular that helped you with your grief?
Having a good support system. I'm very lucky that my husband and my best friend and my family, they were all they just kind of went with what I wanted or what I needed to um get my closure. Like I said, I want to go get a tattoo, like that'll make me feel better. And I wanted to get his birthstone and jewelry, and that'll make me feel better. Of course, those are just, little material things, but they did make me feel better in a sense. But I couldn't be any more thankful for my support system.
So did you find, because I know you're on Instagram and stuff, did you find the lost community after your loss, or was it later that you found it?
I found it right after my loss. So I kind of started to deep dive into Instagram. I took a break from Facebook because I needed a break from all the pregnancy announcements that I was seeing.
Yes.
um, but I actually started. I had a little bit of information in a packet they gave me from the hospital, like regarding loss, and like I kind of found March of Dimes, and I worked with them for a little bit, and that's when I started like really digging into the loss accounts. Like I found a mom who her name was Aubrey, and she had had a stillbirth, and I like connected with her, and she gave me like the courage to like write my own like loss story overall. Like I wrote a whole story basically about it. And then I found the Cooper projects and I loved what they were doing and I made bracelets. And then I just kind of slowly started finding more loss accounts from there. And it's it's not a community I ever knew that existed, but it was the community I needed.
I think that's exactly how so many of us describe it. Like one that, you hear about people going through like, oh, somebody goes through a miscarriage, but you don't realize how many of us and how many people that you actually know, but you don't know they've ever, been through that. And then, there's just this whole community of people that know exactly how you feel and don't judge you for how you feel. It's amazing. I can't speak highly of the, lost community enough.
Right.
So when did you start your nonprofit?
I started my nonprofit in January of this year. Actually, I got the idea when I was sitting in my kids' playroom watching them play, and I'm like, ornaments. Like I was thinking about what kind of ornament I wanted to get for Teddy this year because I try to get an ornament every year to put on the tree for him. And that's kind of when it hit me like, this is what I want to do. Like I want to send people ornaments. So January, I just started.
That's awesome, though. I love that you're doing that. What kind of ornaments do you send, or like who do you send them to?
So they are little teddy bear ornaments. I don't think I have one on hand, but so originally I decided that I was going to send them in October for free to families who've experienced pregnancy and infant loss. And I didn't want this to be any cost to the families. Like my goal was to send 100 just out of my own pocket. And then if I receive more donations, send more from there. But then I started getting some requests for bears early. So I was like, okay, well, now I can send them for a small donation. So, and it's been kind of exciting. I did a hospital donation box and we've sent over 100 bears now. And I'm hoping to just reach more families. And I'm hoping I can reach a lot of families in October too when they're free.
I love that. I love that you're doing that, and that they're, a teddy bear in honor of your boy. How did you come up with his name?
Um, we were actually, my husband and I were just like spitballing one night playing video games. I just randomly asked him the name of his favorite president, and I don't remember who his favorite was. But then I asked him the name of his second favorite president, and it was Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt. So um, that's how Teddy's name came along.
I love that though. That's such a cute story. You're like the
Thank
first
you.
president. I don't like that name. Let's try the second one.
And Teddy kind of just stuck. I mean, obviously we didn't expect, a loss, but like I feel like what luck to have such a name that came with a symbol.
So before you ever went through loss, did you ever think that loss would happen to you?
No. No, I was blindly optimistic. As I feel like a lot of people are when they start trying to get pregnant. And I like never ever would have expected it. You think pregnant baby, never would have anticipated it.
So I know a lot of people think, I mean, I know for my case, it's true that loss changes you into, a different person than you were before loss. Do you think that you've changed because of your loss?
I do. I feel like I feel like I'm stronger as a whole because I feel like I've dealt with death. I've lost a few of my grandparents, but I've never had to deal with a death that was so direct to me. And I feel like I lost a part of myself when Teddy passed away. And I kind of had to, pick up from there and like, what do I do now? Like at one point I thought that there was a darkness that I didn't think I was going to come back out of because I just, I couldn't imagine how I'm supposed to keep going when he's not here with me. And I feel like I found a lot of strength in myself, pulling myself out of that and having my loved ones help me out of that. Um, and I feel like my eyes are a little more open to the world when it comes to stuff like death and grief. Like, I don't think I was so aware. Like, obviously I wasn't thinking about baby loss before I lost one. So I feel like it's given me a new, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is.
I guess, I mean, a new kind of perspective or a new, like
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
I
new
feel like
perspective.
so many people don't understand the really big mental toll it takes on us. It takes us to, like you said, really dark places, having to learn how to live without your baby. I mean, because, in an ideal world, like nobody would ever lose a baby. That shouldn't happen, but it happens to so many of us. And it's really hard sometimes to pull yourself back out of that place.
Yeah. And I also feel like I found a new voice in myself that like I feel like I didn't have before because I feel like so strongly about talking about Teddy and keeping his memory alive and making sure like he's included in everything I do. I feel like, you know, miscarriage and loss, before I had it, before I knew all these people and even in my family, like both my mom and my mother-in-law had miscarriages, but like, they didn't it was not a thing that was talked about, years ago. And I just felt like I found this voice in myself trying to keep his memory alive. And I feel like maybe I didn't have such a big voice about too much before this, but Teddy gives me my voice.
I love that.
Thank you.
It's I think they have such an impact on us, even if they're only here for a short time. They have, a lifelong impact on us and change us in, I think, good ways sometimes, just the things that we do in honor of them. Do you plan to talk about him with your other children?
I do. I try to like throw it in there sometimes. Like Nathan will help me like with making the bears, and I tell him that, the bears are going to families whose babies have passed away. They're angels in heaven, like Teddy. And I keep our like Molly bear. I sleep with our Molly bear every night. But I keep him around the house too, so like the kids will play with him, and I'll be like, "That's Teddy." Like, and right now my son is 3 and Delilah's 1, so they don't really understand. But I'm trying to like make it comfortable talking about it from the get go, because if I don't, it's going to be a weird conversation later. So
Right. Yeah, my daughter's 3 as well. She's almost 4, and my son, he's 9. So he was born before we lost Jasmine, and so he went through that pregnancy, and he was only 3 at the time, so he didn't really fully understand what was going on. But I've noticed as he gets older that he asks more questions and kind of understands more. So I think talking about it from a young age is definitely a good thing.
yeah, I don't think it can hurt anything. So
So what are some other ways that you include him in your family? Like, do you include him in pictures or
yes, I try to include him in like most like family pictures we do and like holidays. I bring him along. He's going to be coming on vacation with us next month because he also needs to see the beach.
I love
Um,
that.
thanks. And I try to just make him a part of, you know, a part of our everyday. Like I've always struggled on the fine line of, do I tell a stranger that these are not my only 2 children? But um and most of the time it wins over that I say, oh, I have one in heaven and I have, these are my other 2. So I try to just keep him as much as a part of my everyday as I can. And I think especially with the touch of Teddy now, like that's just giving me a brand new, like keeping him a little bit closer to me.
Have you found like when you tell people that, is their reaction usually like, does it make them uncomfortable, or do you think that most of them are
Sometimes,
understanding?
sometimes people will just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like, oh, it's okay. Like, and then sometimes people even open up to me and say, oh, well, my granddaughter's an angel, or I have an angel too. And, you know, those are the times when I'm like, really like, wow, I'm really glad I included him in this conversation because maybe this person needed to talk about their baby too.
It's like it gives them permission, to know, okay, I mentioned it, so you can too.
Yeah, exactly. And I
So
mean,
do you
sometimes,
have, oh, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I mean, sometimes people do get uncomfortable, but I mean, it's only like a split second, you know, before they're moving on. Usually it's just somebody I'm passing at the store. So it's fine.
Yeah. They can be uncomfortable for a minute. Who cares, right?
It's a 30-second transaction, then they move on.
So do you have any advice for someone who's newly going through loss?
Hold on to the people closest to you because I would not have survived without them, and not to be afraid to I mean, all of this is, of course, loss is scary and it's hard, and um but not to be afraid to reach out for help if you need it, whether that's just to a friend or whether that's, seeking someone for professional help, or even just reaching out on social media because you need, to talk to a stranger. I found myself in so many support groups on Facebook and connecting with different moms who've experienced similar losses, and that'll help me get through too. Um, and as I mean, advice wise, I mean, that's probably it. That's my biggest
Have
piece of
you,
it.
in your like support groups and stuff like that, have you found anyone who has a similar story to yours?
I've found plenty, unfortunately. Um, Lots of people without answers and lots of people whose, waters broke too soon and literally no reason for it. And none of it makes sense. And I, I never want to have anyone feel the same way that I felt, but I find comfort knowing that I'm not alone. And I feel like that's the biggest part, or one of the biggest parts of being in the lost community, is knowing you are not alone.
Do you think that knowing the reason, or not the reason, or the cause would help you at all? I mean, I know it doesn't bring them back, but would it give you any kind of closure or anything?
I want to say yes, and I don't know really, I don't know how I'd feel if I actually had those answers because regardless, he'd still be gone. I feel like I blamed myself for a long time, um, wondering if it's something I did. I mean, and there's just no way for me to know. So maybe knowing would make me feel a little less guilt about that, but um, it would bring me a little bit of closure, yes.
I know that's kind of a complicated question. It's like, well, I mean, it doesn't really make you feel better, but somehow it kind of does, but not really. It's like one
Right.
of those, like, we all hate the everything happens for a reason comments. And, even if you
Yeah.
know the reason, like it doesn't bring your baby back. So it's kind of a tough question, I guess.
Right.
Are there any specific aspects of loss that you think need more attention besides just like loss in general?
Um, Personally, I was actually just talking with my best friend about this. I personally want to find a way to get resources for women, at least here locally, because maybe it's just around here that they're not doing it. But regarding Teddy's death, when I was signing all the paperwork before I actually delivered him, they said get it out of the way now. I had to sit there knowing he was gone before I delivered him in the midst of my grief and sign papers deciding what I was going to do with his body. And I'm sitting there panicking, like he's not even here yet, but he's gone. And I'm just sitting there like I can't afford a funeral. I can't afford services. And, I did the hospital cremation and he's in a plot with other angel babies that we can go visit, which is nice still. And the hospital covered that, of course, but I didn't know that there are services for families where some funeral homes will help cover the costs or for angel babies. Um, or there's programs like that to like even assist with some of those costs. And I feel like had I known that, like had somebody given that information to me, like I would have not chosen the hospital disposition. And I feel like that's something that needs to be, at least again, this could just be my hospital that didn't have that information, but I feel like that haunts me every day, not knowing I could have had him with me, his ashes, or so that's something I think that needs to be changed, personally.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know that's really hard, but it's frustrating to me that there's no consistency. There's no like this is the standard way that we do things for people who are going through a loss. This is the information we give them. It really just depends on if what hospital you're at. And you're right. I mean, it definitely needs to be, we need to know all our options because we're having to make these decisions in one of the most traumatic times of our life. And, we do the best we can because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
I think we all have things we wish we had done.
Yes.
It's hard. Being a lost parent is hard. It's just the only way I can describe it. It's just complicated. And, you're always, feels like you're always thinking of like the what ifs and the what if I had done this. And it's just hard.
Yeah. I want to say it gets easier. It just gets more manageable.
Yeah. Or, yeah, just different. It's never easy.
No.
So, is there anything else that you would like to share or add?
Um, Trying to think. I had like a list of things. My
That's
brain
okay.
is just I just want to say to all the lost moms that you're not alone. You're never alone. And whether find your connection through a Facebook group or, through social media at all, or through listening to these podcasts or, finding a local support group, you're not alone. And there's always someone that's willing to talk about your loss with you and share their story. And I feel like it's just so important for us as lost moms, if we're comfortable doing so, to share our stories, because your story could be the one that helps the next person get through theirs.
I love that too. It's I've always thought, if I share my story and it helps just one person, then it's been worth sharing.
I'm right there with you.
So if people go
Sorry,
ahead,
go ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say, if people wanted to find out more about your organization, where would they go to find that? Do you have a website or just Instagram?
I actually have Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It's all A Touch of Teddy. And on my Instagram and my Facebook, I have a link to my website. And yeah,
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story with us.
thank you for having me and allowing me to share it with you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for sharing your story with us. I just love the idea of the bear ornaments that you're sending out in honor of your sweet Teddy. I wanted to remind everyone that these ornaments are free during the month of October until her cap is reached, and then they will be available for a small fee. She has already had over 300 requests this month. She is helping to bring comfort to so many other lost families, so I definitely recommend you head over and check out A Touch of Teddy. And if you haven't already, you can also go to the Journey for Jasmine Instagram and Facebook and check out the 31-day baby remembrance calendar. It is 31 days of things that you can do during October, or any month really, to help honor and remember your baby. They are all easy things you can do either publicly or privately, and I would love to have you join. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. If you like the show, I would love if you would leave a review on Apple or Spotify to help the show reach more people. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, we are all in this together.